But let's start with a look ahead. We're already into February, but it's the first weekend of the Pro Tour this weekend. A lot of darts still to come. So what are you most looking forward to in the darting year that is 2023?
There's so much to look forward to. And the Pro Tour start, it's a fresh season for everyone. And it means, we don't know what's going to happen. And that's always a good place to be when the year starts. What am I looking forward to? First, what does Josh Rock do for an encore? Because he was brilliant last year. Even though it took him about a month to get a win on the tour, he was losing to Simon Whitlock and everyone else with over 100 average at the start of the year last year. By the end, everyone knew how good he was. But where does he go now this year? Does he pick up where he left off? Or does he regress a little bit? And we don't know until we see him play. You've got to think he's going to progress. We got to think that a big television breakthrough is bound to come. But it starts by doing well in the Pro Tour events, building some momentum, building some confidence leading into the UK Open, continuing, to move up the rankings, move towards the top 32 in the world. So I want to see what he does for an encore. Also, looking forward to seeing how some of the new tour card holders do. Nobody had heard of Pascal Ruprecht before Q School. Did well enough that he didn't even have to play the final day to get his tour card through the Order of Merit, considering he almost didn't even enter to begin with. How is he going to do, though, stepping up and playing the 127 other best players in the world day in, day out? If Q School's anything to go by, he's going to be a pest for his opponents. We don't know until he does how he takes that step up. But among other new tour card holders, Richard Veenstra, former BDO number one, or WDF number one, I think he was BDO number two. How does he do finally getting to play the PDC Tour for the first time? Adam Smith-Neal, a major winner over in the BDO, getting his tour card for the first time. And then also some people who win their cards back. Stephen Burden, who you mentioned, who we'll have on back after a few years off the tour. Ronnie Hybrecht's back after a few years. Karol Sedlacek, who did phenomenally last year without a tour card. Just like Josh Rock, how does he do building on last year? Obviously, his ranking reset to 0, which was unfortunate because he came within one match of cracking the top 64 overall, and he was there in the race for the World Grand Prix, despite not having a tour card. Now he's back to 0 on all the Order of Merits. But if he continues playing like he did in Q School, like he did pretty much all of last year, he will be a force. And of course, Corey Cadby coming back after a couple years, more than a couple years now away. In his 1 year that we really saw him, he only went and made a major final and won one of his first events. So there's a lot to look forward to from those new tour card holders. And then, of course, what does Michael Smith do this year now that he's world number one? If we can take from the first few weeks anything, it looks like he's still hungry. He's still pushing on. He still wants to not just be number one, but to consolidate that and build the CB that Michael Van Gerwen, Peter Wright, Gerwin Price, the three people right behind him in the rankings, already have. Right now, he only has the two majors. What does he do, again, for an encore like Josh Rock? But now he's at the top of the game. He is number one. Does he continue to push on? Does he add a couple more majors? Does he widen the gap between himself and Peter Wright and Michael Van Gerwen, who are on his heels? So those are questions that we won't know early on. The UK Open, the only major in the first half of the year before we get to the World Match Play at the end of July. But we can see where his head's at and where his game's at going through these next few months, and especially in the Premier League, where he's going to be playing the best in the world night in, night out.
Got to say, to begin with, it doesn't feel like we've really had much of a break, and that's why we've only just got this question in now, because particularly in the PDC, the top level of the game, 9 days after Michael Smith completed darts, in his own words, lifting the Sid Waddell Trophy, becoming the new world number one, he was playing in Bahrain, the World Series over there, with 7 other PDC invited players and the local players there as well. Then we had a World Series in Denmark. We had the Masters the weekend after. And the weekend just gone, that was a rare blank weekend for the PDC. We had no tournaments at any level that I could see from them. And now we've had the players that played in those events at the start of the year. They've had a little bit of a break to recharge the batteries. They've had a weekend off. ready for this first lot of Players' Championship events. And of course, that is if they decide to play in them. We're going to see players skip more events this year, particularly the players at the top end. But I think back to when we answered this question this time last year, what were we looking forward to? And I said having that full calendar back, a full 12 months of darts after the 2 disrupted years that were 2020 and 2021. That was the big thing for me. And almost everything came back last year. But one tour that didn't was the PDC Asian Tour, and that comes back next month. We've got the first lot of tournaments in Japan taking place. That's going to be good to see that come back after a 3-4 year break. Before then, I said I'd mention it, but this week the World Seniors is back, their World Championship, and I'll be at the Circus Tavern for the first 2 days of that. So I can't wait to see a lot of players that I've grown up watching on TV, some that I've grown up watching via YouTube videos, old videos on them, and of course the GOAT Coast Dompe is going to be there as well. I don't know if anyone else knew about that, but away from that, from a WDF standpoint, we've got their World Championship coming back in December at Lakeside. It feels like a long way off at the moment, but I'm intrigued to see how that event is going to be received going on at that time of the year, just before Ali Pali. But that is a long way off. And as far as the PDC, one player I'm looking forward to seeing, and it's kind of been a bit quiet around him for these last few weeks since he won his tour card back at Q School, but Corey Cadby makes his return this weekend if he's on the list of entries. I don't think they're out at the time of recording this on this Monday evening, but having Corey Cadby back on the tour, that's going to be an exciting prospect for 2023. He is an entertaining player to watch, and I just hope some of the magic that he produced in his first run, he's going to be able to produce again this year, because if he does, it's just going to add to what is already a very competitive field at that top end, and one which has a pool of players that is growing. We've seen the last few years players, more and more of them come to the fore, win these big titles in the PDC. Johnny Clayton, Dimitri van den Berg, Jose de Souza, Chris Dobie, Joe Cullen, Ross Smith, Michael Smith only a few months ago with that Grand Slam. Danny Noppert, who's going to be the next one? Will it be a Josh Rock, who you mentioned? Will it be someone else? And with Josh Rock, is he going to kick on further from that debut year? And just lastly, from one player at the start of their career in Josh Rock to one who is in the latter years, but his last game only a few weeks ago averaged 111. Gary Anderson, how much are we going to see him play this year? Because for the first time in a while, he's got a fight on his hands to get in the match play. So it's going to be interesting to see, without having the Premier League to play in every week for the next 4 months, how much is he going to commit to the tour in these early months as well?